You're listening to the New World to Go podcast with your hosts, Redbyrd and BDLG.
Hello and welcome to another episode of New World to Go. I'm your host, Redbyrd, and with me is BDLG. Bordy, a bittersweet episode because, we got a lot of good information to talk about, a big dev interview, a lot of potential, foresight into what's coming in the world of New World. But, Bordy, we can't play New World anymore. We're recording this on Sunday, and the server's no longer up.
I know, I'm pretty sad about it, dude.
Just shed a moment of silence, shed a quick tear for the preview event. It's now gone, but we have things in November to look forward to. And obviously, they have a lot of work that they're going to be doing on the game until the actual release, which seems to be still in the books for spring of 2021. So until then, we can just hang out as a community, chill, come to the Discord, hang out. Check out New World fans, all that fun stuff you can do while we're waiting on the game. So Bordy, let's just do, now that we've wrapped up the preview event, let's just give a quick, discussion about our overall enjoyment, the support that we got. We can give some quick shout outs to the community because, dude, it was above and beyond anything I would ever dreamed it would be. So, Bordy, I'll let you start. Just let's do a little bit of a reflection for the preview event here.
Yeah, dude. All I have to say is it was amazing. Like the entire event, the entire experience was awesome, dude. The 10 days that we were able to play the game. Number one, the game was awesome. I enjoyed the heck out of it. There's a few things that need to be changed and adjusted, I think. And I think we'll talk about that as we get deeper into the podcast. But the whole thing was great, dude. And then the way that our website over there, newworldfans.com, performed, man, was incredible. The amount of support that website received, the amount of support the podcast received, the amount of people that came into the Discord to hang out, and the amount of people that played with us during the event was absolutely awesome. So a big thank you and a big shout out to everyone who played with us or even just visited the website or whatever you did to support our content, man. Absolutely incredible. So thank you guys. And then want to shout out Taken too for all of his work, man. He did an amazing job over the preview event as well, just getting things up on the website as timely as he could and just hammering out stuff. It was all around a great experience, and I cannot wait for release, man.
I gotta echo almost everything you've said, but dude, speaking of Taken, how has he dodged the podcast this long? One day we're gonna get that man on the podcast.
That's a great question.
That kind of blows my mind a little bit right there. But yeah, Taken is a beast. We're thankful for him and our partnership with him. Obviously, we would have never guessed how much support you guys would give us during that period of the preview event. We're extremely excited for the future of New World. And we're very thankful to be part of your guys' drive to work, or maybe throughout your workday you listen to us, or mowing the yard, or whatever you do. We're thankful to be a part of your New World regimen, or part of you enjoying the game. So thank you for listening to the podcast. If you went to support us, which a lot of you did on New World fans, we're very thankful for that as well. And, dude, we're extremely, extremely excited about the future of this game. I think a lot of you guys are too. And we're going to talk a lot about that on this episode, the future of the game, because one of the devs sat down with Asmongold, very popular streamer on Twitch, and Rich Campell. He used to be a caster for Blizzard. Is also a pretty decent sized streamer. Now on Twitch as well. They sat down and interviewed the dev and talked about a lot of the questions that a lot of the people that played the preview event had. I think overall they did a really, really good job, Bordy, with the questions that they asked.
Yeah, I thought the interview was awesome, man. I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure. I don't know where people can watch that, though, because it was streamed live on his Twitch channel. I'm not sure if he's uploaded that to YouTube or what, but I did. So I don't know. I don't know where people can watch that at, but it was streamed on Rich Campbell's Twitch channel.
Yeah, I'm sure you can go over there and look. He has surely has his VODs on, maybe. If not, I'm sure he put it on YouTube. Yeah, it was a very good and intriguing interview. and they did a great job, like I said. So we're going to go through the questions that they asked and the answers that they got on this podcast, because I think it's very, very important and very revealing on what their plans are for the future of the game. So we're just going to go through the talking points and give our 2 cents, obviously, as we go through. So core gameplay staying the same in New World, just adding more in-game content, instance and non-instant content, both being added, and they did specify that. So, Bordy, I think this is something that a lot of people expected and kind of already knew, because they had teased that in a lot of one of their other news articles that they put on their website. They are going to be focusing on more content for the game, and we both believe and have for some time now that the game definitely needs that. So, Bordy, this is no surprise here.
Yeah, not at all, man. I think the core gameplay is great. We've mentioned it multiple times on the podcast, and I think that after the preview event, almost every single person that played the preview event kind of echoed that same sentiment, that the core gameplay is great. The combat's great. The world is great. The core of the game is amazing. They just need to tweak some things and add more content to the game, and then it's going to be a winner, man.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I think generally most people did like the preview. It was 10 days. A lot of people got in there, tested out a tournament, experienced the game, and had fun. So it's good to see that and again, I don't think it really needs it, that they're keeping all of that stuff intact and just working on more stuff for people to do, because I think out of all the things that people experienced within the preview event, that was one of the main ones, is that the game does need more content to keep people playing or logging in day after day, week after week. So it's good to see that will be their primary focus. Now, instanced and non-instanced content, Bordy. So now, as far as the game has, to our knowledge, it has sieges, it has invasions, it has the 2 arenas for instance content. So they did specify that they would be adding more instance content. So do you think it's going to be more along the lines of the things that we already know of? Maybe a different type of faction that invades a territory, or maybe there's just more arenas that they're going to be putting in? Or do you think they're going to step outside of the boundary here and maybe look into creating new types of instance content for the game?
I think they're just going to add some traditional dungeons to the game, man. That's what I think. And at this point, I don't think that would be a bad idea, because the combat's already unique enough that makes those dungeons stand apart from other games. So it's not like you're going through and grinding out a dungeon in another MMO that has a million dungeons, because the way this game works is completely different anyway. So I think adding, a few instances to dungeons for end-game content would not be a bad idea at this point. I think that would be great. Now, I would like to see them be a little bit more creative on that front at some point in the future. But I think for release, as long as they have some of those in, I think it would be fine.
Absolutely. I'm with you, dude. Let's not try to completely spend all of the time or all of this gap between launch trying to discover new ways to keep people entertained, because I think there are a lot of ways that, like you said, a tournament is so unique, and the combat system and the character system is so unique within New World, that if they just think of their own little way to do instance dungeons, I think people would be happy with that, man. That dungeons open up, and I think this is like an underrated feature of instance dungeons, open up a way for you to tell a story. And I think New World needs a lot of that, because they have it is a cool setting, and they do seem to have a little bit of lore tied to Eternum, but I think they really need to flesh that out. And what better way, Bordy, than to add instance dungeons with a little bit of a storyline weaving in there, kind of something to pull people along through their leveling process and tell them about Eternum.
Yeah, and I hopefully they'll achieve that goal. And someone in chat just mentioned too that they'd like to see more mid-game dungeons as well.
Absolutely.
And I do think that that's going to be a thing that happens. I do think we'll see that. I think in the beginning they'll probably focus on in-game content, because I think that's most of the feedback that they're getting. I don't know what feedback they're getting. That's just a guess. But I do think that at some point we'll see some mid-game stuff as well, because I agree that the game definitely needs that as you're leveling. Because right now during the preview event, Red, all we had to level were missions. We ran a whole bunch of missions, and then we did a whole lot of corrupted breaches, and then that was it. That's how you level. And so I've said it for a long time. I've made this point multiple times in the podcast that we do need some other stuff to help us level, and dungeons would give us another option, which is always a good thing whenever you have multiple options to level up your character.
Absolutely. And Asmon made a good point within this interview that it did seem like as you got to max level, there was no new thing for you to be able to like achieve or try out. It did seem like the game loops that you've been doing since level 10 were the same game loops that you would be performing at max level, which, holds true. I mean, and that's something that they definitely need to look into. I do like the point about mid-game content, introducing these new types of instance and non-instance content early enough to where players can, kind of grow with it, but also presenting new things for you to do to keep players interested as that grind continues for you to level. This is probably my favorite topic that they went over, Bordy. Something me and you have held real true to as far as our opinion on the combat system goes. We love the combat, but one thing we'd like to change, and it seemed very open to doing, Bordy, is the possibility of removing global cooldowns on abilities. Dude, 3 weapons have never been done before. We'll just say that. And one of the things that makes that system feel so bad, I think, is the global cooldown system. And so then, Bordy, what are your thoughts on them completely being 100% open to removing those entirely?
It was really, really refreshing, man, because I didn't know how stuck on that they were. And I really would like to see them remove the global cooldowns for numerous reasons. But I mean, it just helps you build out your character better. It provides more dynamic combat. It provides more diverse builds. It provides a lot of things to the game whenever you remove those global cooldowns. Because right now, having 3 weapons, the only time you ever use your other 2 are for utility. And we've seen that over and over and over in the preview event where everyone was running a life staff and just dashing around. We'll get to that in a minute. But that's the problems that happen whenever you have global cooldowns, because there's no reason to run multiple weapons at that point. You have your one weapon that you use, and then you have your other 2 for utility purposes. And the only one you're going to really be using is your main weapon that you have your 3 abilities on. The other abilities really don't matter. You're just putting abilities on your bar that you want for very specific, very certain situations. And so that really needs to be done, man. In my opinion, global cooldowns need to go away. I would like to see them take it a step further and remove the 3rd weapon. I don't like the 3rd weapon, but if they don't and they remove global cooldowns, I would still be happy.
Yeah, and that's a good point, but I think overall, like having the 3 weapon system gets better when you can manage your cooldowns between the 3 types of weapons. It's seems like a lot, but they only have 3 skills, active skills for each weapon. So then managing 9 skills is fine, I think, but the 3rd weapon does kind of introduce some sort of like unnecessary difficulty to manage those 9 cooldowns at that point, because you're having to weapon swap to do so, and there's always like an animation delay with that, and maybe that not having those global cooldowns kind of introduces like now a new problem where now I'm having to manage this very awkward way to optimally perform with my build. But like you said, if they are able to titrate the way that these skills work and the utility of them, it could very well work with 3 weapons. But I think I'm with you, man. Maybe add a 4th skill on 2 weapons and leave it at that. But we'll see. It seemed like they're pretty stuck on the 3 weapon thing, and that's fine. I'm okay with that, but we do definitely need a different type of cooldown system, because like you said, right now there's no reason to really, like, other than like ranged and melee, there really isn't any reason to have even a 3rd weapon, because all you're going to be wanting to use your main skills because the cooldowns, how they work, and how long you have to wait to use them in the first place.
I think that I think you said the difficulty is part of the problem with having 3 weapons. I don't even think it's the difficulty, man, in my opinion. The qualm I have and the issues I have with having 3 weapons is that it just provides for more of an opportunity to run meta builds, man. Because whenever you provide that many options, there's always going to be the one weapon that everybody has on their back bar, regardless, because of one skill. And everybody's going to run that weapon. Everybody's going to have that skill. And we've seen that with the life staff. You take away the option to have 3 weapons, and now you have a melee and a ranged weapon. You're going to have to be forced to run like a throwing axe or a bow or something, or a musket or something else in your back bar versus just the life staff. But that's my problem with it. It's not necessarily the difficulty that it provides during combat or the difficulty in building out your character. It's the forcing people into a meta with 3 weapons, and I just see that being an issue. And it may not be once they add a whole lot more weapons to the game, which we think is going to happen as well. But we'll see. I'm not a big fan of the 3 weapons. I don't even think they need to do 4 abilities. I think 3 abilities on each bar is fine. 6 abilities total, because the game is not revolving around abilities anyway. It's revolving around your player's skills. So 2 weapons, 6 abilities, no global cooldowns. We're good. That's my preference for sure.
And I didn't. Let me clarify. I don't mean like the difficulty of managing the cooldowns. I mean like it introduces like an awkward thing where like bar swapping is usually a thing that obviously takes time. You have to swap, from weapon to weapon, and having to do that more frequently to manage your cooldowns effectively is like an unnecessary barrier, right?
I would agree.
I don't like the fact that, to play my character optimally, and it hasn't played out this way mainly because everybody ran life staff on their back bar for that dash. Didn't really matter. Obviously, the global cooldowns are still intact as well. So if I use my throwing axe, then I'm not going to be able to use whatever. There was like some thought behind what button you wanted to assign your skills to, where like your blink on your life staff was always up or whatever. So you had an escape route. But that's what I mean as far as like difficulty goes. I don't like the fact that now with only 3 skills on each weapon and 3 weapons, a lot of your rotation is involving a weapon swap, which I kind of like. I don't know. I don't really, if it was avoidable, I think weapon swapping is an undesirable thing. I like the fact that you can run more than one weapon in a lot of games nowadays, but I don't like how, that mechanic of weapon swapping as you add more and more weapons kind of, in a way, is a detriment to your gameplay because of having to, swap that frequently.
Right. It's just it makes it not fun anymore. Whenever you're swapping between 3 weapons, you're right. It does become a lot more to manage, and unnecessarily so. Yeah, I would agree with what you're saying there for sure.
Yeah, and so and Ryan makes a good point. With the global cooldowns, and this seems to be something they're willing to change. You basically like, okay, well, I always want Berserk to be my F button. Right? So then you're never going to assign anything that you want to use on your F button on your other 2 weapons. And then I always want to have my blink up so I can catch up to someone that's running away from me. So then that's going to be my Q button. And then so my R button is like my really only choice that I have in the entire build that I have, right? Because and to his point, like, why even assign another skill to any of those weapons on the button on any of those weapons? Because then you risk accidentally hitting that skill. And then when you want your Berserk to be up to where you can, like, cheat death for like 15 seconds, or again, have something as powerful as a blink to catch up to someone who's trying to run from you, why would you even want to risk messing that cooldown up? So then you just don't assign those skills to those weapons at all. And so then you're really only managing 3 skills with a weapon swap every time you want to use a skill, and kind of tying that all together. That's just not appealing combat, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I would agree.
So real quick, I'm going to jump down here. Life staff dash is not working as intended, because we were just talking about that a lot, and we do want to make sure that we know that it's not intended to be a fast getaway from fights. Everyone should not be running around with that staff. So he did make that comment, so that won't be a problem in the future, hopefully. Another thing Bordy just added, and I can, this is finally a positive thing that he's screwing with the document that we're going off of, is axe spam is being looked at, and Bordy made a really good point, and I like this about New World's combat. The main part of the combat is being strategic with your positioning, your ability, or your basic attack, your blocking, your dodging. Those dynamic parts of New World make it less, and I don't want it to become like an ability spam fest at all. That's not what we're asking for with the cooldown or the global cooldown being removed. And I do agree that optimally, I would probably just want 2 weapons as well, like Bordy's saying, too, because they will reduce that, the ability spamming. And so the axe spam is the basic attack, but you could obviously like stagger someone to death with the axe spam, and they're definitely going to look at that. I would say eventually they'll fix that, Bordy, wouldn't you?
Yeah, maybe so. But here's my thing, man. So a couple of things. The life staff dash thing, like I 100% on board. It shouldn't be a thing. Everybody should not be running around with a life staff dashing around everywhere.
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't be how that works. The second thing is the axe spam. So here's the thing, man. I'm probably going to get flamed for saying this. I'm probably going to get some hate mail and some hate DMs in Discord, but I don't think the axe is that big of an issue, man. I'm going to go ahead and go on record saying, I don't think the axe is that big of an issue, dude. I was able to successfully, on multiple occasions in multiple PvP fights, roll out of the axe spam and then use nothing but sword and board and kill someone, dude. Now, I ran axe as a throwing axe. I did not use axe as a melee weapon. Very rarely did I use it as a melee weapon during the preview, but I did not have a problem too much with the axe spam. I was able to roll away. Now, there were a couple times where I was like 1vxing and there'd be 2 guys on me with axes and they would be spamming me, and then there was just no way to get out. Like, I couldn't get out. But when it was 1v1, you just got to roll or block, man. I mean, you just got to roll or block. But if it's that big of an issue for everyone else, then maybe it should be looked at. But I just didn't find it to be that big of a problem.
Well, no. Okay, so I think generally, like with the basic attacks, with one person, like a 1v1, strategically, you could escape the basic attacks. Another thing that made the axe so strong is landing consistent basic attacks continue to increase the damage of the basic attacks, which is a whole nother issue. But when you did get in a fight with 2 or more people, you're basically dead because they are able to consistently like stagger you. So, and I'm not even sure that's like an axe problem. I think that's just a melee like attack problem. You don't want any type of stun lock to be present. And Sword and Shield had a similar issue where you could keep someone stun locked for the entire, duration of the fight if you were skilled enough to do so. And people make a point, well, it's very skill oriented, but eventually as the game progresses a month down the line, you're talking about there'll be a large percentage of the player base that have mastered that skill, and that's not a fun way to play. You don't want it to be based off of who lands the first heavy attack and then they win the fight, because that's eventually what that comes down to, because you can keep someone stun locked. Same with the axe. You don't want it to always depend on, okay, well, I'm versing 2 people, and so they're always going to win the fight because they have a way to keep basic attacking me, which is a very simple thing to do in the game, and then kill me without me having any type of like counter to that, right? So yeah, I mean, that's something they need to look at for sure, but at the same time, I don't think it's isolated to the axe. I think it's in general, they need to find a way to figure out how to prevent a soft CC with just a basic attack. It doesn't feel good, man. That should be easily countered if someone's just sitting there spamming left click on you.
Yeah, maybe so, man. I don't know. I just didn't have that big of an issue as everybody else, I guess. It wasn't a problem for me whenever I was fighting people. I get the concern. I seen it with the axe, but it wasn't a huge problem. I think the problem was a little bit over exaggerated in my opinion. I think that it probably does need to be looked at and maybe tweaked a little bit, but I don't know, man. Combat overall felt pretty good to me. Axe spam wasn't really an issue. The stun locks with the sword and board, I mean, I think you should totally be punished if you're not skilled enough to dodge out of the way of a shield bash or somebody dashing at you, hitting you with the shield. If you don't see those animations and you can't get out of the way, then you should be punished for that. Now, should you be stun locked to the point that you can't get away and you die? No, because that's awful gameplay. But that never happened in any situation I was ever in, unless I was fighting multiple people. There was always
that's the problem, though. You know what I mean? That's the problem. We generally, and me and you would fall in the same demographic. I think I can speak for both of us here. It feels really good to beat two people in a, you know what I mean, in a contest, right? You have a group run up on you, and that's the problem. I think at its core is that should not always be decided upon like someone's weapon choice. If I've come up and fight against two axe users, I should not 100% lose that fight every time because their ability just to basic attack me to death, right? And I think that is a concern. I think anybody would agree with you. I think everybody would agree with you. And the fact that if someone runs up to me with an axe and we're at a similar level, they can't, like, that's not the way they can't win that way. You could easily dodge out or block, like you're saying, but it does, obviously I think the hard counter to axe was sword and shield in that aspect as far as a 1v1 goes, right? I think sword and shield perform very well against like melee axe. And as long as they have those counters in the game in a 1v1 instance, where I'm okay with playing like paper, rock, scissors sometimes, whereas like,
rock, paper, scissors. Dude, you just said paper, rock, scissors? Who says that?
Dude, I named all three requirements. Dude, lay off of me, bro.
Next, are you going to say scissors, rock, paper?
Listen, man, I'm not going to repeat it.
Rock, paper, scissors.
All right, dude, whatever, man. I'd like to point out that Bordy's an axe user on stream. You know what I mean? He's an axe user, so everything he says is not creditable, all right? Anyways, so let's move on. But those are two things that are important to the combat system that we definitely want to mention while we're mentioning the global cooldowns. But generally, like, the combat's fun, man. And I do believe 100% that they're adding at least going to double the amount of weapons in the game, which will help out tremendously as far as like meta and the types of contact you're going to encounter. And who knows, dude, that's the spear that they add in the game, because I'll be maining that spear, may just destroy the axe entirely.
Yeah, it could. And that's the thing we don't know. That's the big unknown, is that they're going to add a lot of different weapons, and that could be, so they may not need to change anything, because the addition of the new weapons could be the change, right? Like, we don't know. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm excited to see where it goes, though. And you're right, the combat overall was incredibly fun, man. I think the PvP in this game, getting in the PvP encounters we had, and there towards the end, I think it was the last night, Red, we had an amazing
dude. That was so much fun.
We fought for like 3 hours, man, and it was incredible. It was some of the best PvP in any MMO I think I've ever had. Even with all of these little things, and all these things we're mentioning are small things that I think every MMO has issues with, right? They have to fix things that aren't working over time. And then even whenever they add new content, it breaks something else, they have to just go back and fix it. So it's just stuff you have to deal with. But overall, dude, it was incredible. That last night we had PvPing was, dude, I had so much fun.
And it doesn't make it, to your point, it doesn't make any sense for them to have balanced those weapons before this preview event, because they know that they're adding more. So like, why waste your time balancing 7 weapons and then introducing 7 more and then just having to rebalance everything? So that's important to note as well, and I'm glad you said something about that. One of your rare good points on the podcast, Sporty. Moving forward, more than likely, they mentioned that there were no mounts on release. So, dude, I know a lot of people share differing opinions here, but I'm in the no mount category, dude. Listen, man, I think they'll eventually have mounts, if we're being realistic, just because I think simply that's a really easy way to have a cash shop with appearance items. Everybody wants to ride a spider or this heaping flaming dragon, and that's an easy way to get people to spend money in the cash shop. And I'm 100% before cash shops that are just cosmetic, and it just makes sense to have mounts in the game. Now, do I want to see the mounts move at a high rate of speed to help you traverse Eternum without much risk? No. If they do add mounts, I want to see them do like a short or like 25, 50% increased movement or something like that. But if I have to choose mounts or no mounts, I'm going no mounts, Sporty, because I like how big the world feels without them.
Yeah, so I'm going to get flamed for this too. because I'm in the same boat as you are. I think 100% no mounts, but my reasoning is a little bit different than yours. I think, I think you like how big the world feels. Mine is solely related to PvP content. I have no problem with mounts in terms of the way the world feels. Like, give me a mount, let me run fast to point A to point B, and let me get my quest done. Let me get my experience. Let me get all that stuff done. My problem with mounts comes in with this game specifically for PvP missions, right? So in PvP missions, you go to your syndicate, well, we were syndicate. So we go to our faction leader, we pick up the PvP mission. We have to then run all the way to the mission to complete it. We have to complete it, and then we have to run all the way back. You cannot fast travel back and forth. All right. You cannot fast travel back and forth during those PvP missions, or else you abandon your PvP mission. If you introduce mounts into that system, people are going to be mounting up. They're going to dart directly to their mission. They're going to get off the mount, kill the stuff, collect the stuff, whatever, get back on the mount, then run straight back to their syndicate leader, turn it in with almost zero risk, right?
Yeah.
The only time they're at risk is whenever they're actually doing the mission. Now, I think that can be countered by maybe if you're flagged up for PvP, you can't summon your mount. Maybe that's the case, but then I see that introducing some other issues as well. So, I don't know. For right now, I am 100% no mounts as well. I agree.
What if they do add mounts, but then it's like kind of a risk versus reward thing to where, like, okay, so if you mount up, you can easily be knocked off of your mount by any type of attack. And then you suffer like a 3-second stun or whatever for being knocked off your mount. So then typically, in a PvP setting or being flagged, you would not want to mount up in certain situations because obviously you would put yourself at greater risk for,
Yeah, so maybe like a real brutal CC. That might not be a bad idea. Okay. Look, you do have some good ideas every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're going percentage-wise, I mean, I'm just shooting a little bit higher than you are, so
no,
that's all that matters to me, brother.
I think that's
tagging XP and how it works. They said when a party member tagged, you should receive XP. That's a breath of fresh air there because I know they just mentioned that there was some like bugs during gameplay because me and you noticed that when we grouped up. Everybody in our company that was running together, we noticed that sometimes like we would be doing a portal together and some of us would get XP, some of us would get credit, and some of us wouldn't, which made absolutely zero sense being in group. So they did mention that that's a bug. So that won't be in the actual live game. If your group tags something and you're in that group, you will get experience.
Yeah, which is incredibly nice because it's hard whenever you are running in a group of 5 and then they go kill the mob and then you're sitting back and you haven't made it up there yet and you didn't get a chance to tag the mob and then you don't get XP even though your group killed the mob. It's like it's kind of frustrating. So I'm glad that's something that's being fixed.
The next one is crafting should be equal or higher level to the drops that players get. And this is a big thing, dude. For me, and we mentioned this when we spoke about the player-driven economy on I think we've done a couple episodes on that topic already. This is really, really important to that, Bordy. Crafted gear will be the gold standard, and dude, I'm extremely excited to hear that because I know how passionate people are about crafting in New World.
Yeah, I am glad that they are making this known. Because crafting in the game is really good. Crafting in the game is really, really good. And in order to have a successful economy, we talked about this a long time ago whenever they first introduced legendaries into the game. It was a lot of episodes back, probably 10 or 12 episodes back. We talked about how detrimental it would be if the dropped items are better than the crafted items. So I'm glad they mentioned this in the interview, and I'm glad they asked that question about crafting items because it kind of clears up a lot of confusion because they do want crafted items to be higher or equal levels. And I think the goal for them is like dropped items and legendaries come with very specific perks, very specific bonuses on those items. And so then whenever you go craft your gear, you can craft it and tailor it to whatever you want it to do, right? So a legendary will be very specific. It's going to be a named piece of gear. It's going to have very specific attributes and traits on it, and that's it. That's what you're going to get. But then whenever you go craft your gear, you can tailor that, and that's a big thing. And then that piece of gear can be better for that situation. that you need to use it for. So it makes crafting still very viable, which is very, very important to the overall success of the game, I think.
Yes, and while we're on the topic of gear, and this is another point that we've mentioned here on the podcast, tiers of gear are being examined. So how far can we go past level 60 or tier 5? Me, for sure, 100%, I will not change my opinion on this. The game needs an in-game tier of gear. So even if they do limit the level to 60 at launch as max level, they've got to come out with tier 6 or at least spread out the tiers to where you don't get access to drops or equipable items that are above tier 5 until you get to max level. Because, dude, it just, when you hit 50 and you get to equip all tier 5 gear, it just feels like you're done, man. You're done leveling. There's no reason to progress. And I know that a lot of that is the content in the game. Maybe it just needs more content and different drops to happen. But I really do feel like if they're going to keep it at level 60, they need to at least add one more tier at max level for players to grind out and another incentive to progress.
Yeah, exactly. And if they do that, I think that they should go back and reassess and reevaluate when you hit what tier when, right? So like,
right.
Did I say that right? When you hit what tier when?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So like, at level 35, you get into tier 4 gear, right? So maybe every 10 levels or something at that point, because there are some kind of odd like progression points in there. If they added another tier at level 60, I think that should maybe be looked at too, which I think they are. They made that point in the interview that they are going to be looking at tiers of gear, how they work, when you get them, how far you can go, and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. I hope they get that right. I think they will.
Yeah. I mean, to my mind, it's a no-brainer. And I think one way or another, they're going to change the current system as far as like in-game gear goes. So. Other than I think they are dedicated to, and I hope that they are, crafting is going to be the pinnacle way to get the highest level of gear in the game. So difficulty of mobs and scaling, they're looking at this, and this is very encouraging for me as well. And this is kind of the example they gave. Should a player 20 levels lower than a mob be able to kill it at all? Now, Bordy, we overstepped our level by quite a bit at the end of the preview. We went into the level 50 and 60 zones. Me, you, and Ryan, and I think he was the highest guy in our group, and he was like 48 at the time. And me and you went up there and with Ryan, and none of us were max level, and we went up there and we killed a lot. We went through like some of those open world towers and we lived through it, dude. Was it difficult? Yes. But the question that they posed for the devs was, should that even be possible at all? Is there a reason for, or is there a feel of progression if I can already do everything at max level at level 35 or, with a group of 535s? Can I go ahead and do all the in-game content midway through the game? Should that be possible at all? What are your thoughts, Bordy?
So, first of all, I just want to address this by saying I did have the privilege of running with another group that were all max level. They asked me to come along and try to go get a Spriggan key. And we went through some of the highest level content in the game towards the end of the preview. And at level 35, I was getting one shot by stuff. So, I was dying super fast. Now, what you're talking about is the content that we were going through. We were fighting like level 50 mobs and we were able to kill them by ourselves, but it was a little bit difficult. So, I have mixed feelings about this. All right. I really have mixed feelings about this because on the one hand, you're right. Progression seems kind of stumped whenever you are going into level 50 zones at level 35 and you are able to successfully kill stuff, even though it's a little bit harder. But on the other hand, it's like, well, if you're good enough to go do that and you're good enough to survive in those situations, then why shouldn't you be able to go up there and kill that stuff? Like if your skill level is good enough, and that's what they're going for here with the combat is skill-based combat, then why shouldn't you be able to go kill stuff that's higher level than you? So I don't know, man. I have very mixed feelings about that because on the one hand you have lack of progression, and on the other hand you have player skill that you shouldn't be held back by. So I don't know, man. That's a tough question, really.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is they shouldn't really they have a tier system in place for gear for a reason. I think it is a very big determining factor in your character's power or ability to kill things and to compete against other players, and even so I would like to see them use that in a way that makes it almost impossible for you to complete content at a higher tier level than the tier that you're currently wearing. So like if you're wearing tier 3 gear, and which is what you are able to equip at level 35, I believe, and then you're going into like a 40 or wait, tier 4 was level 35. So if I get tier 4 at level 35 and I go into a level 50 zone or higher, there should be no way that even with a group of 5 that I feel like that group of tier 3 players or tier 4 players should be able to complete the tier 5 stuff. It should be extremely difficult. And I think a lot of that did not hold true in the preview. Because again, like I said, 3 of us that you were like barely 30 at that point, and I was like trying to hit 35. So we haven't even in tier 4 gear yet, Bordy, and we were completing what essentially is like tier 5 level difficulty mobs and stuff. So was it difficult? Yeah, but we were able to do it without a whole lot of we were getting hit and living through the hits and stuff like that. So I don't know, man. Yeah. They've got to find a way to create, different levels of smaller progression. Keep people, I hate to use the carrot on the string analogy, but that's essentially what people like in MMOs. I like the fact that if I keep grinding out, I'm going to get another level, or I'm going to earn another skill, or I'm going to be able to go in this new zone that I can't necessarily go into at this tier. And having those type of progressions in the game, I think, really help players feel the need to continue to progress.
Yeah, and I think overall the sense and feeling of progression probably trumps the sense and feeling of being just phenomenally great at the game. I would think for most players.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I like the feeling of completing content higher than me, and maybe it should be possible to some extent. But I just feel like as a vision for the game, or like as a progression system of the game, it doesn't feel that great when I can do max level stuff without being max level, I guess is what I'm saying. So maybe they just need to add along with another tier of gear and equipables, they need to add another tier of mobs, because I know that they do have level 65 mobs in the game. That's 5 levels higher than any player can obtain. So maybe they should just add more content like that in the game to make it feel like, you can't do a majority of the content without even being a max level.
Yeah, maybe so. And that's the stuff that was one-shotting me towards the end of the preview. So we'll see, man.
Okay, so the difficulty of the mobs, we mentioned that. Sorry. Adding quality of life improvements like trading between players. They did mention they're looking at that, and I think they'll eventually add that, because if you can drop an item, if it's not bind on equip, and you can drop an item in a town and have someone else pick it up, then why not just add trading for non-binding gear, right? So
yeah, exactly. I think they'll add trading and a lot of other quality life improvements before the actual release. They did mention that, and I think that they'll totally do that.
And this is our last talking point. We'll be getting another preview along with alpha and betas up to launch. So that's really exciting, because they didn't mention anything like this before this interview, but we will be getting another chance to preview the game and play it when they, hopefully add a lot more content that we can kind of try out. Probably, I would guess, mostly testing the weapons and the balance between those. So that's exciting, man, we'll get another chance to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, the guy that they were interviewing, he's from, Amazon Game Studios. Obviously, he specifically said that we were going to be getting another preview. So I hope that we hold him to that. And hopefully we get that, because he said we were going to be getting another preview, and then we're going to be getting alphas and betas. We knew we were getting alphas and betas, but I had no idea about another preview. I don't think anybody else did either. So that's pretty exciting, man. And I hope that they stick to that, and we do get another preview that everybody that pre-order gets to play, because I think the alphas are now going to be back to the random random drawings or whatever, the random keys that you get. So, dude, I hope we get into the next alpha, dude. Like, I don't,
I mean, at this point, it's probably going to be just as random as before, which I think there's a ton more interest in the game now. So,
yeah,
we will see, dude. We will see. All right, dude. Well, anything else? I thought that was a very good interview by them again. Answered a lot of questions that people were having, a lot of concerns with the game they addressed. They were very open to any of the, they didn't really like do a lot of like hardcore like recommendations for the dev during the interview, but he was open to like almost everything they had said being something that they would look at or that they would need to change. And I thought that was very encouraging from a player standpoint, is just, having a dev team that's willing to take feedback, constructive feedback, obviously, and work with that to better the game.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. That was kind of a big takeaway as well, is that he did seem very open and honest about every single answer. I didn't feel as a listener to the interview, I didn't feel like he was holding anything back whenever he was talking about the game. I felt like he was being completely honest and open with every question, and they asked some hard-hitting questions. I thought the interview was amazing, man. Big shout out to those guys. They asked some very, very good questions, and the interview was great, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. They did a great job. All right, man. Well, that's going to tie up another episode of New World to Go. Bordy, we haven't really talked about this yet. Maybe we can make an announcement on the Twitter account. But are we going back to every other week? Let's keep up the weekly basis for maybe one more time. What do you say?
I'm down for whatever, man. I enjoy the heck out of these.
All right, dude. So why don't this, everybody, plan on another episode next week. We're going to do that for you guys until we run out of things to talk about. And maybe we won't, dude. Maybe by the time we have another episode, they'll announce something new, a new feature or a new preview event that we can join into, dude. We'll just hope for that. All right, Bordy, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, man, you can find me over at twitch.tv/BDLG. You can find me on Twitter. It's twitter.com/TheBDLG. And then YouTube is the BDLG as well. And then you can find me over at studioloot.com. And then, of course, creating a lot of content over at newworldfans.com.
And I'm redbyrd with Y. You can find me on Twitch and YouTube under the same name. On Twitter, go follow the Studio Loot Twitter account, guys. Eventually, we're going to phase out any type of activity on the New World to Go Twitter. It will still be up, obviously, but all of our activity for all of our Studio Loot stuff, which is New World to Go and New World Fans, will be ran primarily through the Studio Loot account. So definitely make sure you follow that. Guys, we're very, very appreciative for all your guys' support through the preview event. Very thankful for all this, for the website, for the podcast, for everything. The streams were off the chain, dude. It was insane during the preview event. We can't wait for the actual game to come out. Don't forget, guys, this is extremely important as podcasters. Leave a 5-star rating and review if you're an Apple iTunes listener. We know most of you are through the analytics, so we're going to shame you right now. Go leave a 5-star rating. It really helps us as far as searchability and everything like that over there. So do that, please, for us. Again, guys, thank you guys for your support. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on next week on another episode of New World to Go.